Hello, I'm Brendan Donnelly. I'm the leader of the Rejoin EU party. Over the past couple of weeks, the Labour government has developed and consolidated its rhetoric on the European Union. It talks blithely about wanting a reset of the United Kingdom's relationship with the European Union, but whenever it mentions this reset, it makes it clear that there are so many inhibitions and restraints on this reset that it's not going to be a real reset in any serious sense. Every minister and MP who talks about this stresses that the United Kingdom under Labour is not going to rejoin the European Union, it's not going to rejoin the single market, it's not going to rejoin the customs union, it's not going to endorse or allow freedom of movement. In addition to these rejections of important elements of what would constitute a reset, there are phrases that recur. We've got to move on. There's no appetite for relitigating the questions of the past. Brexit may have been an economic drag on us, but we've got to take the advantages of the future. We can't open the old wounds and the old debates which have so disfigured the past 10 years. A new element of this debate, of this discussion from Labour, is the claim that I want to discuss in some detail today, the claim that the European Union wouldn't want us back anyway, even if we did want to rejoin. That's simply untrue. But what is true is perhaps that the European Union would not be very keen on having us back at the moment. There's a distinction between the European Union doesn't want us back now and the proposition the European Union wouldn't want us to come back in the future. The government have an interest in confusing these two propositions because then it's an excuse for saying we can't consider the question of rejoining. It's a non-issue. We'll get on with other things and hope that people forget about Brexit. It's certainly true that at the moment, because our continental partners, our European partners, know that there is no government that's going to make an application to rejoin the European Union, it's not something that they're thinking about. It would be naive to believe that the European Union is sitting there just waiting to be asked to dance by the United Kingdom when the United Kingdom walked out so pettishly and so petulantly of a European Union that it had done so much to form. Over the past 10 years, longer than that, the British earned themselves, I'm afraid, a certain amount of unpopularity in the European Union by always wanting special and extra arrangements. They were going to opt out of this, opt out of the other, and opt out of, finally, the European Union. And then the negotiations for Brexit were so bad-tempered and so ill-conducted that they did leave a scar. So the European Union at the moment doesn't want the United Kingdom back. But that shouldn't be confused with the issue, does the European Union hope that in future it will be possible for the United Kingdom to come back in a way that will be beneficial to both sides? And I'm struck by how static is the analysis of the British government on this issue. The British government doesn't see any point or any sort of prospect of making ourselves, the United Kingdom, more fit to be a member of the European Union. Over the past 10, 15 years, even before we left the European Union, there was an increasing rhetoric from the Conservative government, and now I'm afraid echoed by the Labour government, that Europe should be kept at an arm's length, that it was better for us not to be fully committed members of the European Union. That's got to change if we're going to get back into the European Union, and I think it can and should, but it's an obligation upon the government to make that happen. If we simply sit here saying the European Union at the moment doesn't want us back, then that will continue indefinitely. The idea that the European Union can be gradually won over for the British cause by small steps, I think is largely a delusion. European Union is not against a better relationship with the United Kingdom. But that's not the same, and it's not remotely the same as being within the European Union with all the possibilities for our country that implies. There are people from the Remain side of the argument in this country who hope it might be possible to get back gradually into the European Union, joining the single market, joining the customs union, joining programs such as Erasmus. I'm not against attempting those things, but I'm not entirely sure that the European Union would allow us to cherry pick on the question of the single market and the customs union. They might be willing to allow us into programs, and that would be very welcome. But it's not something which is going to lead inevitably or even probably to our rejoining the European Union. The only way in which we're going to rejoin the European Union in a way that is satisfactory and achievable, both from our point of view and from the point of view of our European partners, is if there is a campaign in this country to rejoin the European Union and to rejoin the European Union as full and active members, as committed and enthusiastic members. During the referendum campaign of 2016, a lot of people who were urging a Remain vote were claiming that we had a particularly favourable set of arrangements within the European Union because we weren't in the single currency, we weren't in Schengen, we were opting out of various aspects of European integration. That was entirely a counterproductive approach. It led the impression that it was better to be further away from Europe, even while we were in the European Union itself. And that was a recipe for schizophrenia. I think that we'll only be a happy and stable country again, a politically happy and stable country again, when we recognize that being in the European Union isn't simply a question of economics. Economics are important, but the economics of the European Union are designed to serve a political goal, which is that of European integration, peace and prosperity shared between the nations of Europe, which have disfigured the history of the world in the 20th century from their squabbles, from their wars that became world wars. And that's something that the European Union is set up to militate against. If Keir Starmer is interested in building trust with the European Union, then he can very simply win that trust by telling the European Union and telling everyone in this country that he recognises that Brexit was a terrible mistake and that it's one that he wants to reverse. It may not be possible to do it from one day to the next. Of course it won't be. But the process has got to start now. Who knows how long the process will be? But what I do know is that if we never start the process, we'll never get to where we want to end up. When the Labour Party, the Labour government, says that there's no appetite either in this country or in the European Union for rejoining for the United Kingdom to re-enter the European Union, there is a specious plausibility to that. But it's a function of political leadership, which he aspires to exercise, to lead opinion rather than simply accept an acquiescence in national decline. I found more shocking than anything I've heard since the general election, the claim of Wes Streeting that we should simply accept the economic damage done to the United Kingdom by by Brexit and move on because Brexit was simply irreversible. If you believe in the power of politics to make things better for your country and for the voters in the country, then you should be in favour of rejoining. And that's what the Rejoin EU party is all about. We have a programme for the United Kingdom, which we think will reverse the damage and dangers of Brexit. It will make us a happier, a more stable, a more reconciled country to ourselves and to our neighbours. Phony resets are not going to cut the mustard. It's only rejoining the European Union that is going to do that.
Vote Rejoin EU. Join the EU vision.